I don't think Povetkin managed to land a single punch. Certainly not a single punch of any consequence, but yeah, just thinking off the top of my head, I can't remember Povetkin actually landing anything. And obviously that's credit to Dillian Whyte, but at the same time, I have to say that Povetkin, as Dillian Whyte said he would, was diminished even from the first fight. Dillian Whyte, for his part, boxed an assertive fight. At times he was very aggressive. He kept it long for the most part. He kept Povetkin on the end of a jab. He was landing body shots here and there. He wanted to be the ring general from the very first bell. And he had Povetkin looking flustered. He had Povetkin looking unsteady on his legs long before the fourth round, actually. You know, in the first round, you could see that Dillian Whyte really wanted to hurt Povetkin. It's as if he wanted to knock Povetkin out with one punch the same way that he got knocked out. So there was certainly no issues with regards to Dillian Whyte being gun shy. If anything, there might have been some issues with regards to him being angry. He was definitely angry in there as far as I could see. He was angry with himself, angry with the previous result, and he wanted to right the wrong. And watching the fight, he was doing well, but I just felt like he was giving Povetkin opportunities that he didn't need to give him, with a lot of wild swings and stuff like that. Dillian said post-fight that he felt like he could have got Povetkin out of there in one round. Maybe he could. But again, you can come unstuck, as he did in the first fight, when you give your opponent opportunities that you don't need to give them. So it was a good performance. Took center ring. There was a few moments in maybe the third round where he moved around a little bit and got Povetkin to come at him. But for the most part, he just took center ring and he kept it at long range behind the jab and was hitting Povetkin as hard as he possibly could at every opportunity to try and shell shock him. And it worked. So it was, I think, the third round, because he kind of shook Povetkin up a little bit in the first. Then the second round went by, was a quieter round. Then I think he shook him up again a bit in the third round. Then in the fourth round, he managed to seriously hurt Povetkin. He was on unsteady legs. Dillian Whyte followed it up, managed to put him down against the ropes. And the referee, Povetkin tried to get up, the referee waved it off. It was a good stoppage because Povetkin was done. I mean, the commentators, I was watching the DAZN stream, and I'll come on to that in just a minute. But on the DAZN stream, it was Nick Horlin and Paul Smith. And Nick Horlin was commenting about how Povetkin just didn't look right. And he is 41 years of age at the end of the day. And he did take a lot of punishment. Just like Dillian Whyte said, he did take a lot of punishment in the first fight. And maybe he was right. He actually needed more time to recover than Dillian did physically. Although mentally, it's a different thing. Now, when it comes to the mental side of things, again, Dillian Whyte certainly wasn't gun shy. He certainly didn't appear to have any lack of confidence based upon what happened last time. We never got to find out about his punch resistance because, as I said at the start, he didn't get hit. So that's still another question that has yet to be answered. But in terms of the confidence and all that, no problem at all. So that is definitely a good sign that he can go straight back in against an opponent who knocked him out badly and not have any, confidence issues. Look, it's not necessarily going to be the same case every time because in the first fight against Povetkin, he was winning and Povetkin landed one shot out the blue against the run of play. If he's in a fight where maybe he's taking a beating and he isn't winning and he gets knocked out in those circumstances, would he be so confident going back in there in an immediate rematch? Maybe he would. As I mentioned before, during my decades watching boxing, I've seen that Jamaican fighters, and I'm talking about fighters that were born and raised in Jamaica. I believe Dillian Whyte came to the UK at maybe the age of 14, something like that. Might be a bit younger than that, but he's still got the accent, right? And he's still very Jamaican. And all the Jamaican fighters I've seen over the years, from Donovan Razor Ruddock to Trevor Berbick, many others, they tend to be extremely brave. They tend to be the kind of guys. Razor Ruddock was like this. He was one of them kind of guys where you could knock him down, you could knock him out, and he'd come back and try and fight you again the next day. That's the kind of mentality a lot of the Jamaican fighters have. And Dillian Whyte's definitely got that mentality. He's old school like that. He's one of the typical Jamaican fighters in that sense that I've seen over the years. But yeah, good performance, and he was in much better shape here. I know Dillian Whyte has been around 247 pounds in several fights in the past against AJ, who was 247. But in this fight, he was way more solid looking than he was against AJ all those years ago. And I don't know, I think he didn't look as muscular as he looked in the Chisora fights, but he looked more lean, if that makes sense, especially around the midsection. You could almost see abs coming through for Dillian Whyte, and I haven't seen that since his very early fights, you know, first, second, third, fourth fight. Actually, I'm not sure about his first fight, but his early fights that were on ITV and stuff like that, that's when Dillian Whyte was more cut up. But this is probably the best or the leanest I've seen him since then. So it's good to see him in that kind of condition, and hopefully he can keep his weight down. You know, if he can stay active and get out there, keep his weight down, it will definitely benefit and help him. So yeah, hats off to Dillian Whyte. Good performance, got his revenge. And of course, this helps a fighter moving forward. You know, I know Dillian Whyte is a very naturally confident guy, and all the things I've just said about him with regards to not being gun shy, still having plenty of confidence, this will add even more to the confidence. Because there's one thing believing you can do something, it's something else to actually know it by going through with it. And now he knows that he could right a wrong that quickly. And it was a little reminiscent of Lennox Lewis and Hasim Ratman. Not to say the fight was on that kind of level, but what I mean by it is he had Harold the Shadow Knight in his corner, who was Lennox Lewis's assistant trainer. Lewis was knocked out in, I think it was 5 rounds by Ratman in the first fight. Then in the rematch, he knocked Ratman out in 4. And that's the same thing that happened here with Dillian Whyte against Povetkin, right? He got knocked out in 5 by Povetkin in the first fight. Then in the immediate rematch, he knocked Povetkin out in 4. So he did it one better, just like Lennox Lewis did when he knocked out Hasim Ratman to regain the world heavyweight title. So yeah, great performance, onwards and upwards. Not a perfect performance by any means. He seemed anxious to get the fight over at times, a bit too anxious, a bit too angry. And against a 41-year-old Povetkin, who by his own admission had taken a lot of punishment in the first fight, you can get away with that. But as he steps up against younger guys at the real elite level, he's not going to get away with some of those mistakes he was making in there. You know, the way he was really overcommitting with shots and falling in. Obviously, he wanted to take Povetkin's head off. but there are fighters out there who punish you for making those kind of mistakes. So, you know, he said he wants to get out in the summer and take on maybe a bit of a tune-up, you know, a stay-busy fight. And those can be dangerous too. We've seen that happen over the years, right, with stay-busy fights. But in the stay-busy fight, I'd like to see him just have a nice, tidy performance. No wild stuff or anything like that. You know, nice, tidy boxing. Turn it on when he needs to turn it on. But just work on tweaking the technical things which he'll need to have in place when he fights an AJ, a Fury, a Wilder, an Andy Ruiz, and so on. So, yeah, all in all, great performance. Now, what wasn't so great, to have a show in such a beautiful location and do it indoors was a kind of a disappointment. I expected it to be outside. There was like a big football pitch outside the arena. I thought maybe they could have had it there. It would have been great to see the backdrop, you know, the ring with the big rock in the background and all that kind of stuff would have been amazing. But I watched the DAZN version of this fight. Live streamed it. I didn't pay for it. Normally I buy Sky Box Office pay-per-views. I didn't buy this one because of the Orwellian, neurotic, totally unnecessary entry requirements. I thought it was, quite frankly, disgusting. They did have people, 500 crash test dummies. I'm glad I watched the DAZN version because apparently on the Sky version, they were pumping out the propaganda like you would not believe. I'm glad I missed that bullet. Because, Sky has just gone so propaganda happy, just pumping it out nonstop, the most egregious forms of propaganda. Every acronym you could think of, they're pumping it out nonstop, shoving it down your throat when you're trying to watch a boxing show. It's too much. So if there's one hope that I've got for boxing in the UK in 2021, it's that Eddie Hearn leaves Sky. I know DAZN is not completely free of that kind of nonsense either, but it's not as bad as Sky. Still, what we really are tuning in for is the fight. And it was a dominant display by Dillian Whyte. Really didn't get hit. Left Povetkin shell-shocked and did the business in 4 rounds. So hats off to him. He now is the WBC interim champion. And he has to just wait and see what happens with AJ and Fury. And just wait for his opportunity. In the meantime, stay busy in summer. And then hope to get the winner of, assuming they have 2 fights and assuming their fights even go ahead at all. Maybe their fights don't go ahead and Tyson Fury has to fight Dillian Whyte before the end of the year. But if their fights do go ahead, then I guess he'll have to have a fight in the summer and then wait until early 2022 to get his shot. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about Dillian Whyte's performance. Let me know.